Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at absolutely everything regarding the story of Reliance Industries and its legendary founder. This is a tale of scale, speed, and massive reinvention that literally changed the way an entire nation does business.
Seriously, I want you to keep this question in the back of your mind as we go through this, because this journey completely defies all traditional business logic. We're talking about a company that started out as this tiny yarn trading operation and somehow grew into one of the most massive private sector companies in India, taking over petrochemicals, retail, and telecommunications. So how does that kind of explosive growth actually happen? Well, it all comes down to the man behind the empire, Dhirubhai Ambani. Born in a village in Gujarat to a school teacher, he definitely wasn't born into massive wealth. But, he had this absolute genius for spotting market inefficiencies that everyone else totally missed, paired with an incredibly bold vision to supply high-quality products to millions of people. Section 1. The Hustler of Aden. Let's start way back in the 1950s. A young Dhirubhai is working as a petrol pump attendant and a clerk in Yemen, but his mind was already working overtime. He figured out that the silver in Yemen's coins was actually worth more melted down than it was as actual currency, which allowed him to legally arbitrage the difference. When treasury officials in Yemen noticed their solid silver rials were mysteriously vanishing, the trail led right to Dhirubhai. He was placing open orders for the rials, melting them into silver ingots, and selling them to bullion dealers in London. This early venture perfectly captures his defining trait. It was pure hustle. It's the ultimate example of done dough, finding a gap in the market and exploiting that inefficiency for a profit, even when the margins are super tight. And really, this was just a tiny preview of the massive scale he was going to operate on later. Section 2. Birth of an Empire.
Armed with a small fortune from his early hustles, Ambani returned to a heavily regulated India in 1958. And this is where that 350-square-foot room comes in. He started a company called Majin with his second cousin Champaklal Damani, importing polyester yarn and exporting spices, all from this tiny room in Mumbai with just one telephone, one table, and 3 chairs. By 1965, the two actually ended up splitting due to different visions for the business, so Dhirubhai struck out on his own and set up his very first textile mill in Gujarat in 1966.
Fast forward a bit, and he launches his flagship textile brand, Only Vimal, named after his elder brother's son. By the time Reliance sponsored the 1987 Cricket World Cup, Vimal was on everyone's lips. He aggressively advertised, maintained consistent, affordable quality, and built immense consumer trust. I mean, you even had international cricket legends like Vivian Richards wearing Vimal suits. It was a total game changer for Indian fabrics. Section 3. Democratizing the stock market. Now, to grow as fast as he wanted, the banks just weren't going to cut it. Ambani needed to bypass the traditional gatekeepers. So, in November 1977, Reliance floated an IPO, offering shares at just 10 rupees. Think about that. Before this, the stock market was basically an exclusive club for the wealthy elite. But Dhirubhai believed ordinary people could, and totally should, own a piece of his company's growth. He completely revolutionized stock marketing by treating retail investors like everyday consumers. He didn't just list the company, he literally campaigned for it. He held massive town hall-style meetings, sometimes packing out actual sports stadiums, pitching the stock in local languages. And remember, this was 1977. No internet, no trading apps. People were filling out physical paper forms, and Reliance had to build a massive internal department from scratch just to handle the mountains of paperwork. The response? Absolutely insane. A staggering 58,000 retail investors jumped into that first IPO alone. The issue was oversubscribed 7 times over. It was an unprecedented display of public trust. And this wasn't just a big win for Reliance. It practically birthed an entire equity culture in India. Dhirubhai heavily rewarded that trust. To put it in perspective, a mere 1,000 rupee investment in 1977 grew to roughly 7.78 lakhs over the next 35 years. That's a 21.6% compound annual growth rate. The wealth creation for the common Indian was just staggering. Section 4. Mastering backward integration. Okay, so his next masterstroke was the strategy known as backward integration. Instead of relying on suppliers, he just decided, you know what, I'm going to own the entire supply chain. He worked backwards from the finished clothes all the way down to raw crude oil. The logic was simple. If you make clothes, why not make the yarn? If you make the yarn, why not make the chemicals for the yarn? By cutting out the middleman at every single stage, he took total control of his costs. This was fully realized at the Patalganga plant in Maharashtra. It was perfectly located near Mumbai's refineries. He even built a crazy 55-kilometer pipeline just to feed the plant with naphtha. From this one massive site, Reliance processed chemicals that form the backbone of polyester shirts, plastic bottles, and even household washing powder. It was a massive, interconnected industrial ecosystem.
Section 5. The Bear Cartel Controversy. Now, a rise this meteoric definitely didn't happen without some intense friction and controversy. We're looking neutrally at the facts here. In 1988, a group known as the Calcutta Bear Cartel started aggressively short-selling Reliance shares, trying to completely crash the price. But suddenly, these mysterious brokers, calling themselves the Friends of Reliance, stepped in and bought up everything the cartel was dumping. It caused so much chaos, the Bombay Stock Exchange actually had to close for 3 days. In the end, the Bear Cartel was squeezed and forced to buy the shares back at a massive premium. The press was naturally wondering, where on earth did this massive influx of rescue cash come from? It was later revealed in Parliament that millions had been routed through Isle of Man shell companies with wild names like Crocodile, Lota, and Fiasco. Critics were highly suspicious, for sure. However, the Reserve Bank of India launched a full investigation and ultimately found absolutely no illegal acts or transactions. Reliance essentially walked away from the whole ordeal stronger than ever. Section 6. The Reliance Legacy. Dhirubhai Ambani passed away in 2002, leaving behind an incredibly complex, yet entirely undeniable legacy. It's fascinating because even his fiercest critics eventually did a total 180. Take journalist Arun Shourie. He spent the 1980s writing these meticulous exposés accusing the government of favoring Reliance. But by 2003, Shourie was a government minister, and he gave a speech openly thanking Dhirubhai, acknowledging that despite the controversial tactics, he had single-handedly dragged Indian industry onto the global stage. This quote from former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee really hits the nail on the head. Dhirubhai was the ultimate proof of concept for the Indian dream. He showed exactly what was possible when raw determination meets an unbreakable entrepreneurial spirit. And that leaves us with a huge question for the future. Today, under Mukesh Ambani, the company has completely reinvented itself yet again, bringing hundreds of millions online with Jio, dominating retail, and pouring tens of billions into green energy. It really makes you wonder how the foundation built in that tiny 350-square-foot room will continue to reshape the world in the 21st century. The rules keep changing, but that original playbook written by the hustler and Eden, it's still driving one of the world's most fascinating empires. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it leaves you curious to dig in and learn even more.